So I often get questions on how I made a pad sound, how I made a lead sound, or how I made my kick, or and so on and so on. I thought maybe it's a good idea to take a look on a complete level to get that melodic techno sound, because it's not about a single element. It is kind of a couple of different techniques that you should utilize to make your melodic techno tracks a bit more sounding professional. I'm going to try to make a quick loop in this tutorial that's sounding melodic techno-ish. We are going to utilize some of the things that I told previously, for example the arpeggios of melodic techno and leads and melodic techno, but we are going to combine them so that they sound like a coherent melodic techno track. And I will also explain in meantime why things work when you do it some way. I should mention that this is not about the creative process of the melodic techno. This is more like a sound design part of the melodic techno. So you shouldn't use the notes that I'm using all the time, or you shouldn't use the melodies that I use all the time, but you should understand why those melodies work. So when you make your own melodies, when you make your own pads, so you remember the things that I mentioned today, so and make them yours and make your own track right afterwards. But before we start with the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell button so that you get the notifications when we make a new video like this. Other than that, let me take a sip from my coffee and we make a loop for a Saturday morning that is sounding quite melodic techno. So I have my own stripped down template over here. This is the template that I use oftentimes, or I started to use this template more and more because I really love it. It is kind of quite minimal, but it has all the elements that you should have to start an idea or to start a track. And of course this will be like a huge, probably it will end up probably like 30, 40, 50 plus channels in the end, but this one's like a total of 15 channels that all you need to get an idea on Ableton. I'm gonna make another video about the template itself, but today's video is just using it and making a melodic techno track. So as usual, just to keep the rhythm going, tempo going, I put the kick just to give the rhythm and the tempo. So what I'm going to do, just go to Production Music Live and the Premium 3, go to the kick samples and try to find out something that will work. I want something like a bit more creamy, but I want to have slight punchiness in the track, in the kick as well. So let's take a look. This sounds fine. I don't want to jump into the like billion different samples. I just want to take the one that sounds just fine. Let's keep it 4-bar loop. At the moment it's a bit too long. Let me shorten this up a little bit. What I want to do, put an EQ 8 over there. I feel like there's that bunch, makes it sound a bit weird. Actually, this is not my type of sound. Let's move this up. Yeah, that was that. I'm gonna put a drum bass as well, just to play with a bit the color of. Oops, not that one. Let's put this down. So you see what I'm doing, I'm getting this sound a bit darker. Let's put a channel or something like this. And then of course I'm gonna try one more thing. Yeah. And even I'm processing more than I often do, but I just want to get this right to start with. I like to use a bit limiter on top of the things to get this like a bit smoother, a bit creamier sound. And let's push down a bit more. Yeah, I think this is good to start with. Again, we can play around later on. We can probably make it a bit shorter like this. Yeah. Yeah, should be fine. I don't want to spend too much time in it. The second thing that I often do is actually putting my pads so that I hear the tune on the background, so that I can actually build a melody on top of that. And it's quite important. And you can also get already some melodies up at this moment. What I do is here, like I often have. This is why I like with this template. I often have this kind of chords on there, or like a basic things that I often use there. It's very handy when you are doing this type of stuff, right? So what I'm going to do, basically, you see this is the F minor, and to make things a bit simpler, I'm going to use Diva in this case. Try to keep using Diva in this tutorial, simply because we have this Diva theme for this month, so let's keep in that way. The first thing that I would definitely do is actually just go for the presets, because these are oftentimes simple pads. It doesn't need to be super complicated. So what I would do, go for the June 60, and then just cut off a little bit like this. I want kind of a more something like this, right? Cut off more. Let's give you a feedback. Feedback means that feeding the sound back again. Let's put a sub, make it a bit like a deeper. And then we will like to use a chorus to make it a bit wider. And then I will use a plate to keep the ambience going on. You see how big it is? How it is filling up like a background. The only thing that you should be careful when you are making this kind of pad sounds, actually using an EQ and checking out your stereo field, because we use the chorus, it probably just made everything stereo. And easiest way to do it, actually putting this EQ, putting its sides. Let's see. So you see things are like under 100 hertz on the sides. I would not suggest it to not cause a phasing issue. So I'm going to do like this. Cut those guys. And in the meantime, I'm going to boost the mid. So let's put it back to mid. Let's put like something like this and boost up a little bit. So on off. You see that the focus comes in the middle on the back end a little bit. And we can even cut a little bit here so that it doesn't interfere with our kick. And then I'm gonna cut this up a little bit. The color, the sound a little bit, I'm gonna put that generally, cut this one up, cut this one a bit more up. Something like this. Other thing that I'm going to do, I have a sidechain compressor activated on the pad, so I should mention that. I always have like a kind of compressor sidechain the kick, so it's already there, but it's good to mention. I mean, you can definitely do many things here, but let's not exaggerate to start with. And this is the high pad. I'm going to keep using Diva. Like, if you think about it, if you take a look at the spectrum here, you will see that this is like really on the low end of the things. You can even make it darker, like as we did here. Depending on your high end, you can even make it darker like this. Right? Or if you don't want to keep like things more on the both sides the same, so you can put this guy over here. You can even make something like this, make it darker. Again, we will have a high pad, so you don't want to have everything from one single pad sound, which is your low pad. So let's build a high pad. What I am going to do to start with is actually take this, put an octave above, like this, to start with, and then I'm gonna cut this off. So I could do shift up, but let's do it this way. And put a Diva. Not that Diva, this Diva. Again, let's go to preset. Now I want to have this kind of contrast to the low pad sound, because we just used this kind of a lush pad, especially in between the square and soft-tooth. So I would like to create some kind of a contrast to that. So the first thing to do actually for me is just go for something different here. For example, mini poly should be fine, so we have this kind of more moogish sound. Let's cut that off a little bit. Yeah, and let's put this, and let's put this here. And then let's put this up. Again, here you can play around a little bit with the tunes and with soft-tune and so. So I would like to probably play around to find a sweet spot. I feel like this is still fine. We are going to use it. And then plate. The one thing that I'm going to do now, actually, I'm thinking like this pad, the low pad, we can give that a bit attack, so it's like smoother if I isolate. Or let me just volume this down a little bit so you can hear the low. There's like more continuous sound. I'm thinking on the high pad I can make a slight movement to make things a bit more interesting, so I'm going to do it this way and just consolidate it, keep this way this is, and probably just push this up here, right? So what I'm thinking now is actually putting the 7th. So if you don't know what 7th is, a 7th chord, you can basically count it. Like if we are in the minor scale, the 1st, the 2nd, the 3rd, and the 4th, and the 5th, and the 6th, and the 7th. So it's basically D sharp. So I go 1 octave down. So I'm thinking like kind of creating a small melody here now. Let's play all together, so see if everything actually works, right? Yeah. And maybe like this. Let's try something like this. We shouldn't cut this off. I keep the attack fast simply because when we hit that note, the kind of a melody, I want to hear it. It doesn't need to be this loud. So as you can see, if you take a look at here, actually these notes have a bit higher velocity. So you can decrease down if you want it less aggressive, so that it is in line with other guys. Let's go back here. Play around a little bit. What I'm going to do again, put my EQ there. Just need to make sure that we are not taking too much space from the or low pad. Or let's do it this way. Let's mix it properly. Again, let's not spend not much more than this, but I think it's quite lush, nice pads already here. It's doing the job more or less. What I would suggest most of the time at this point, put a hi-hat so that you at least hear the high end of the track, so you don't push too much your lead sounds when you are making it. If you don't have anything on your high end, you will have this like super free spectrum, and it will actually lead you to make a very big lead sound with a lot of high end, and it will be harder to mix it later on. So what I'm going to do, basically put a 16 hat. It doesn't need to be that advanced, and I'm gonna put like just a regular hi-hat, and then just mix them slightly so that I have the spectrum a bit more balanced on the background, right? So what we do at this case is actually go to Production Music Live. Let's find a closed hat. I want something simple. I think this is Francois just making sounds. I think this is fine. Yeah. Let's push that fade in. Let's try to use this. Yeah. Here we go. Basically, I wanted to get something a bit more stable. I wanted to have it short, so I put a slight attack as well, so that we have this sound in the beginning and then making it really short. Again, because of the template, I have more or less everything that I have here. You need here on the go, and then side chain the kick as well. Let's send it to reverb a little bit. Vocoder could be nice, slightly blinking up the sound probably. Something like this, right? Making a bit more organic. Again, at this point you can use LFOs to make it a bit more like a moving around and so on, but I don't want to spend too much time on it, but you should be doing it. And then I have this off hat. I want again keep the things minimal and simple. Simplicity is the key oftentimes. Let's go to Production Music Live. I'll kind of open hi-hat. Actually, I can probably make this work. Again, you see that I just interested in like shorter part, almost making like a closed hi-hat. Here we go. I'm thinking they're slightly distorting this sound ever slightly. Here we go. Maybe slight delay. We can actually, let me see if it is a long or short. Oh, this won't work because it's too long. But we can do like this, get a delay, really short one. We can try with this. Can even go for ping pong. Just give this kind of crazy ambience. You don't need to overcomplicate things. And then I'm gonna do like this when I, oops, hitting. Let's put it shorter. Just again, simplicity. And then give some movement here. You can basically do it this way. Maybe like this. And for the second part, we're gonna do like this. Keeping these things a bit more interesting, right? It's already sounding, you know, you just have a couple of elements, just pads basically and a kick, and it's already sounding melodic techno without even put a lead on there. The reason being is just melodic techno always have this, not always, but most of the times it has this kind of ambience, which is coming from actually the minimal techno. In the beginning, it's not, of course, fair to say it this way, but more or less the melodic techno was a kind of a bit more complex version of the minimal techno, and minimal techno always had this kind of nice ambient. So it's like coming from the roots of the genre itself, I will say. And now we are going to make a ARP or lead. Both is fine. For this case, I'm just gonna go for a back melody. For most of the time, my ARP or the front melody, it could be also my ARP. So let's use the back melody for this case. I'm gonna put a diva now. I want to have this kind of a simpler arpeggio to start with. So what I'm going to do, just pull this off. We are gonna go something really simple. I'm gonna put a simple, let's try something a bit like this. One oscillator, kind of fast attack, decay, no sustain, a bit release here and there as well. So basically a short decay, no sustain, so it will be like a sound. Let me try to, yeah. And let's do it probably this way. I basically want to hear this sound, right? So something like this to start with. Is it too low? Probably it is. No. Shorten this up a little bit so that actually we can hear the arpeggio before we start. So let's push this down a little bit. Maybe let's go something like this. I want to kind of a more polyrhythmic stuff going on. We are already getting there. Let's make the sound a bit complicated and slightly. I want to put a sidechain compressor to delay so that we have this glue to the kick so that we don't make a big mess. We can add like a pink noise on top. So we are already there. So the thing that I would think or consider at this point is kind of adding a lead sound. So front melody mainly, it doesn't really matter at this point. It depends on how many different lead sounds that you have. We don't have the bass, for example, so your main lead sound could be kind of a bossinish bass, kind of a bit more distorted bass, what I mean by the bossinish bass. Or you can have a front melody kind of another arp, but then it could be like a more like a brass sound probably. That will kind of probably interesting in this case, and then that will also make this track closer to the kind of afterlife sound, if you're interested in that part. Let's try something like that. Let's put a main lead, put another diva, and make kind of a I will say brass lead sound, and then put some notes over there, and then see if we can actually get something interesting, more or less. So I get, of course, my my diva over here. This part is a bit more harder because now you are creating a melody. It's kind of a more creative process, so it's harder to come up with a really good melody right on the spot. I'm going to try something. Hopefully we will find something like a simple, but it still works. So what I'm going to do, so let's go to F. Let's do some sound design over here. So let's cut off. I want to give this attack and release as well. I'm definitely utilizing all the oscillators and putting some square waves over there. So I want to have this kind of richer sound. So let's put this to forward and go this all the way up and turn this on. Here we go. Yeah. You see that how we are already like tail of us, kind of. Of course, it's not that easy, but you get the idea. Here we go. We need a big plate on this one. Maybe a bit more. Dun, 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 dun. We are gonna go something like something like this, right? And then we can play a bit more. What I want to do, yeah, like this. Here we go. A little bit chorus purple. Yeah. Let's give a beat back. Here we go. I definitely need some white noise over there to make it a bit more aggressive. Yeah. But I want to do to distort a little bit like the pitch as well. So let me try with the second one. Yeah. You see how it gets like a really distorted, not distorted, but like a damaged, if that makes sense. Kind of sounds unstable. Yeah, this doesn't need it. Maybe put a bit. I want to do it like this. This becomes overkill. Let's do it like this. You can even slightly. What you can do, make it a bit more interesting. I think the other sound is actually better. The important thing is actually playing with attacks and the decays and so on. The one thing that I would like to do, actually, definitely put an echo. And I still feel like there's a room for actually pushing more noise. And probably make the delay a bit more complicated, right? So let's put it in ping pong. Let's put it this way. And the second one could be going for more. Yeah, I think this should be going for the unstable C. So basically C sharp the 6th. Let's try. And then you go to stable C here. Yeah, let's go back to the echo, and I would think maybe we ping pong it and then push into the middle. Maybe it is more interesting. So I don't know if this will work. Let's try. Yeah, it actually kind of worked. Let's put a big feedback and actually probably group this up and actually do it this way, right? This is the origin sound. This is the wet chain. Put it 100%. Stereo is still there. Oh yeah. So you see that we close down the stereo field. The delays goes like into the middle. It kind of creates this nice ambience. But I think I should prefer it to go to the upper pitches than lower pitches. So I'm going to do it this way. Yeah, more dramatic. We can drop it a bit here. Otherwise, we will have fun time with gain staging there. I actually kind of like the melody and everything. It turns out to be nice. Sometimes, you know, this is the production itself. You never know what you're going to end up. And sometimes you end up with the nice things. In this case, this is what I did with this. Probably I'm going to make a track out of it later on. Of course, it won't be this simple. But anyway, the final thing that you can do kind of in between front melody or front lead or whatever you call it. I think now we have one strong lead and a nice of back melody in between, kind of a repeating thing could help. So I'm gonna add a diva. Try something very simple. I'm thinking, looking at now, let's do something like I have this brass sound over there. That is my default sound, by the way. So probably you get the idea. I'm gonna give this kind of a brass sound. Yeah, here we go. We will push this down, and then we push this down, and we are gonna make this a big sound. I want to use the chorus. Here we go. Let's push this up, push this there, make it bigger. I'm still not happy with this. Let's take this from lag to envelope 2, put it up. Let's push this more. I feel like there's still room for this guy. Let's push this down. Let's give this kind of a nice attack here. I want to have long decay as well. A release on that. Yeah. Now you actually kind of probably get what I'm trying. Keep this low. Let's turn this up. Here we go. That's what I want. It's growling. Make them maybe grow more by detuning this guy. Thinking like a using rotary, kind of a, if you do it really fast, it will almost act like a distortion. So decrease the mix. Let's put the delay here. Or let's keep this simple, right? What I'm gonna do, basically edit plate back again. Turn this up, put it down. Great, we're gonna distort this now. I'm thinking leaning towards more overdrive to start with. Saturation would be probably fine, but let's try this now a bit. Oh, yeah. Let's put an echo. Maybe slower. I feel like this is a bit too big at the moment. Yeah, I want to just like a purring sound, like it just shows the feed like grrr, and then it just disappears. So I just want to give this aggressiveness. Here we go. Like this. And let's cut some more. And then probably bigger again. Let's loop. It's already looped. probably it should be starting here. Let's do it this way. So it's nice. It's working. It's cool. The thing that I'm thinking now, actually, just cut a little bit dark here. Sorry, I was thinking something else, but I realized, the thing that I'm thinking now is actually adding a bass, and it's a hard decision for me at the moment, because you can put a driving bass on the top of that, or actually you can go with more like a more rumbly bass, or you can just go super simple. Like I'm leaning more towards super simple, because we have super strong elements in the front now. We made this kind of a super big lead sound, kind of front melody with this brass sound, and we have a nice arpeggio in the background, and pads are quite nice as well. So you don't need to make everything super big. Otherwise, you cannot focus. Like, too many elements are really good, and then you don't know which to focus, and actually you lose a little bit from each element. So I'm really leaning towards making a super simple bass sound, which I'm going to try now. So let's go to the template and guess the mini poly here. Let's go back, and I think we are in the F minor, so I'm gonna grab this up here, put in the color environment. So oops. Let's go down, cut those off. Let's volume this down. I should have a side chain to start with. Here we go. I'm thinking like make it longer. Let's keep it simple. I saw this. I see that let's put this here as well. Let's turn this on. Let's put the release. This kind of a bite there. think that I can add here kind of dark percussions, like playing on the background leading up to, because we are keeping now the bass simple, then we have to have some slight more entertaining stuff. And I remember actually we had this tutorial where we had made this like a dark background sound for dark percussions. I think it was called like rumble kick with maybe techno rumble. Let's try rumble here. How to make it? Yes, here we go. I think here I should have kind of a kick color low artifact. Let's put an artifact there. Let's listen to this now. Yeah, I want to make it a bit higher now. Volume that up. Let's try again. Not that often, probably. Like this. It's basically Tom's sound distorted a little bit. And then of course finally with the crazy part you can bring it in the right sound and so on and so on. But I think this is a good sound only. Unfortunately, I'm really sorry for my patrons that I'm not going to share this file because I'm probably finishing this track. I really like it. Probably finish it. I don't say I will finish it, but you know, I kind of like it. I like the vibes and I can go and finish this one. If I summarize it up, the key is keeping things simple and understanding why you do things, like why you do this pad, why you need low pad, why you need high pad, what is the difference, and for example, what you should aim for your main lead, what you should for your back lead. Again, the creative process, the melodies and the harmonies that you're coming with is completely up to you, but understanding them in the frequency spectrum and understanding how actually they use in melodic techno will help you greatly to make great tracks. And just mashing up your creativity, artistic creativity on top of that will help you to create your own sound from them. But other than that, I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope you learned something. I will catch you in the next one. Goodbye.